They don't make up the majority of the roster, but of course, those 5 stars catch our attention. There's many of them headed to Ohio State to visit with Ryan Day and staff, as we just discussed here between Steve, Tony, and myself. Many official visits, and the camps actually start a week from Thursday. So maybe a little bit more on that the next show, but leave those comments and questions there. We will slice and dice up the latest on the national scene regarding the college football playoff and its possibilities. And so welcome into Ohio State Buckeyes Live, 319th edition. We appreciate you being here. Make yourself known there in the chat. We got Tony Girdman right next to me. Buckeye Huddle is the site, Buckeye Weekly's podcast. Get there for Tony's perspective. And Steve Hellwagon, senior Big Ten writer at Bucknuts 247 Sports. Guys, how we doing?
Doing great.
Doing well.
As I mentioned, I counted 11 official visitors for this first weekend coming up, and a ton of 5 stars. And then the next weekend, as you mentioned to me, Steve, camp start. And then Tony pegged next Thursday is June 5th. So it'll be time for you guys to get on the camp beat, Steve.
No doubt. Real excited about that. I'm going through our visit calendar here on 24/7. My God, they've got half the world set up to visit. Let me see. Yeah, 11 guys. My goodness. They have so many. Let me count these up. 11 and 5 is 16, 17, 31, and 47. They've got 47 guys scheduled for visits over the next 4 months. No way they're going to sign 47 guys. I can go through and look at what I've got on just a couple of these guys, but really important one is Felix, I'm going to pronounce it Oho, of Lake Ridge High School of Mansfield, Texas. He's the number 5 overall prospect in the country. 6'6", 275 pounds, number 1 ranked offensive tackle. So he'd be a major coup, obviously, if the Buckeyes could land him. Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida, all involved with him, but certainly a great note for Ohio State to get involved with Felix Oho for an official visit. Also this coming weekend, Savion Hiter, I'm going to pronounce that one, Hiter, Mineral, Virginia, Louisa County, a running back, 5'11 and a half, 200. They just love those guys right in that 5'11", 200 range. That's kind of like their sweet spot right now for that running back position. 17th overall prospect in the country, number 1 running back. So that's a big one. Xavier Griffin, my goodness, the number 8 overall player in the country, a linebacker, number 1 linebacker, 6'3". He's from Gainesville, Georgia. They've been cleaning it up in Georgia. Another top 100 player, Jake Kruel, Kreul, from IMG Academy, edge rusher, 6'3", 230 pounds. He's the number 60 player in the country. So Luke Wafel, another defensive end who I know that they are really working hard on from New Jersey, and he's got the size, 6'6", 245. He's number 109 in the country. So those 5 guys, I mean, my goodness, that's a good start to any team if you're able to add an offensive tackle, a running back, a linebacker, and 2 edge rushers. I mean, that's just what the doctor ordered. They're hitting all the high spots, it seems, and all the positions that need help, certainly in the 2026 class. And as I said, over the next month or two, 47 guys on official visits. That's absurd. Plus the camps, plus. It's these are good times when you win the national championship, Tony.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting. They've got 3 pass rushers on the docket this weekend and another defensive tackle as well. I know way down the list, Aaron Thomas, a 3-star offensive tackle out of Arizona. There are people out west that think he's kind of a sleeper, and we're hoping the bigger schools wouldn't latch on to him. So I think Ohio State might have a decent shot there, being one of the bigger schools. And, of course, Corbin Fordham, the tight end's already committed. He's scheduled to be at Ohio State. I know there's some question if Donovan Webb, the cornerback from Texas, is actually going to show, I believe. So we'll see that. And that's the other thing about these weekends is they're scheduled, but do they actually show up and make it? And then getting Felix Aho here is great, but again, these kind of battles don't usually go well for Ohio State because they're not going to pay $2 million for an offensive lineman, or they're not going to pay $3 million. So it's always interesting to see which guys show up, and then quickly, what are the rumblings on what the asks are? What hole do you want your house to be on? At Muirfield, like where are you looking for your family to move to? And it's sometimes it's a non-starter. It's always a non-starter when that's the first thing. Is when the money is the first thing. It's like, all right, well, good luck in your future endeavors.
Nice segue to let everyone know that we've got our weekly recruiting show with Leanne Herring, Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern. So that's tonight on the main channel, 8:30 Eastern. And Leanne has a ton of these guys on speed dial. So she's talking to them all week, all the time, back and forth, getting direct quotes and leans on this. So we're happy to have Leanne here at the Voice of College Football. And we get together Wednesdays, 8:30 Eastern time. Stephen, I'm going to check on the pronunciation. We've been spitting out the name Felix Ojo, so maybe she's just being kind and not correcting me on that one. So I'll find that one out tonight. Also, Xavier Griffin, the linebacker out of Georgia, decommitted from USC just recently, and so he's one of the official visit listed for the Buckeyes coming up this weekend. And it'll be interesting to see how the quarterback pool shakes out here the next month or so, because they're locked in. Of course, Saban St. Clair is in camp and ready for this fall, and then they got their 2027 guy, but 2026 is still up in the air.
It was funny watching last year at camp. This is 11, 12 months ago. Ohio State was bringing in a different top 2026 quarterback every single camp. Like there'd be somebody new there, the top guy, the top 3 guy, top 5 guy. And most of those days, Tavian St. Clair would also be there. And so they'd be working next to each other, and they'd be getting like a look at who they're going to be dealing with. And it's like, well, I'm not really thank you, Ohio State, but I'm going to go like Dia Bell, who was a high 4-star, 5-star quarterback, was working like right after, like they were next in line behind, like Tavian St. Clair would go, and then Dia Bell would go. And I think like 3 or 5 days later, he committed to Texas after camping at Ohio State, where it's just, they got a kid from Oklahoma. They got all of these national guys that would come in, and they'd be basically getting a firsthand look at who they'd be stuck behind at Ohio State once they arrived. And it didn't do them any favors, I don't think, in recruiting.
Let's go Super Chat call-in line here. We have left a link there in the chat. So if you would like to talk to Steve and Tony and possibly myself, the call-in line is right there. Just leave a Super Chat and you can direct a comment, questions, anything that you have for the 3 of us. Ryan Dawes, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for the contribution, sir. How about JJ Smith making the cover of College Football 26?
I think that's not a surprise. I am still of the opinion that I come from the Madden cover curse school of thinking. So it's like it's always kind of a dangerous thing. But there were plenty of guys on it last year, and sure, there were. I wouldn't consider anybody cursed on last year's cover, because I think Quinn Ewers and Donovan Edwards and Travis Hunter all played to their abilities last year. They were who we thought they were last year. So I think that was just more of a mistake on EA's part than any kind of a curse.
Yeah, congratulations to Smith, as well as Caleb Downs and Ryan Day. I think they're all on the cover of the video game, and well-deserved. And again, when you're the national champions, you get the spoils. And, what a luxury to win a national championship and have 2 great players that caliber, who are certain to be NFL top 10 draft picks, it appears, coming back to be kind of the backbone of your team this coming year. So I think it's exciting stuff. And to me, man, the season's going to be here before we know it. And, I am scouring everywhere. I have been to every Barnes & Noble in a 12-state radius, and I still haven't found the Athlons or the Lindy's yet. It was not at Lenox. It was not at Pickerington. I don't know if I went to another one. Oh, Easton. I was at Pickerington, Easton, and Lenox yesterday, and neither of those magazines were at either spot. They're supposed to be out. I've seen the covers online, and I don't want to order online because it'll probably take 10 days to get here, and then I would have it already at the store. I'm going to try again tomorrow. I give it about every 2 days to make my rounds, and tomorrow I'll venture out again and see if I can find it.
Steve, I think you and me are always every year kind of in this race.
A race, yes.
And it's like I'm the same way. Like yesterday, I went back to Barnes & Noble for the first time in like 2 days. But I even went to magazines are disappearing from the drugstores now too, and from the Kroger.
Kroger doesn't have it. Kroger does not have a magazine stand now. If you go up to I assume that they still keep magazines that they actually have a record of selling, like People and some of the others. But they've done away with the magazine rack, which is weird.
But it's so funny because after this show, I'm going to go grab lunch, but also I'm going to make time to run over to Barnes & Noble real quick just to check, because I will say 2 days ago when I went there was a spot that is completely empty. Like they got rid of a certain batch of magazines.
They know they're coming. They're coming.
But I have seen covers, like the actual magazines on Twitter, but those are for people who got the advanced copies because they wrote something in them. So, well, it's kind of concerning that that's just popping up now. Like if the people who wrote stuff are just getting it now, it means it may be still like a week or two away, which is a bit much.
Yeah. What's funny to me is the Barnes & Noble at Lenox, which is right across the river from Ohio Stadium, the Lenox Town Center with the AMC Theater and the Target and, everything else right there. And the new Capitol Grill that replaced the Champs, and the Italian restaurant, I think, is there too. You go in there, once they've hit, and there'll be a stack of them 3 feet tall, like hundreds of them stacked up because they know they're going to sell, 50 to 100 of those copies. So they stock them at Lenox, and at mid-season you can go in there and find still a 2-foot high stack of the Phil Steele magazine and a few left over of the others. But I need it by Memorial Day, and Memorial Day has come and gone. And, I'm sitting here. Memorial Day was 3 days ago, guys. This is bullshit. So, what can I do?
That's supposed to be the deadline.
I know.
Yeah.
To be fair,
early Memorial Day. Stupid early Memorial Day got us.
Yeah, the calendar got us. I'm still expecting it this week because I kind of needed to start writing all the summer preview stuff because the amount of changes in college football from month to month and rosters and things like that is you need all of these things at your fingertips. And I got to order my Phil Steele here before the end of the month in order to get it on the first run. So that is the other step. The first step is getting the first magazine, which I think is going to be Athlon. That's the national. And then I'll get the Lindy's Big Ten. That's my other thing every year. And then the Phil Steele. And that's about all I need.
Yeah. Another big topic tomorrow will be the television times, I believe, on Thursday for at least the first 3 weeks of the season, plus some selected night games and games that'll be moved off Saturday to Thursdays and Fridays. Friday primarily for Big Ten. I wonder if Fox will release its entire. I imagine they will release their entire Friday night schedule. I don't think Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan are going to be involved in the Friday games. I mean, I think with stadiums that are 100,000 seats, it's almost impossible to do that on a day when there's also school involved on a campus. But some of those other schools that need the publicity and the Pac-12 schools that are used to it, they can go for it on Friday night, I guess. But Scott Docterman from The Athletic wrote his projections, and he had Ohio State, Texas at noon on Fox, as was reported by, I think, 24/7 Sports last week, that there may have been a movement by Fox and Ohio State to play the game on Sunday night of Labor Day weekend, and Texas, well within their rights, vetoed that because they wouldn't get home till Monday morning and would still have a game the following Saturday. I'm not sure who they play, but yeah, it'd be kind of a tough turnaround for them. So, I feel that, Texas well within their rights to turn that down, and Fox can say, well, we tried, and sorry, it's at noon. It's just kind of the way it's going to go. And then he has, I presume, Grambling on Big Ten Network. He didn't even list it. I presume noon or 3:30 on Big Ten. And then Fox picking up, or not Fox, NBC picking up, which I think is an attractive game, the MAC champion Ohio University at Ohio State. They've got basically the entire team back at Ohio University. So I think that'll be a competitive game for about a quarter and a half probably. But he's got that at 3:30 on NBC. So he says the issue that the Big Ten has is, I think in those first 3 weeks, there are only 5 non-conference games against Power 5 opponents or Power 4 opponents where they have television control. So there's a dearth of attractive TV games for poor CBS and NBC, who are shelling out all this money and getting stuck with, Charlotte, Maryland, and different dumb games like that, as opposed to marquee type games. So, I guess there's a Boston College, Michigan State game this year and Oklahoma, Michigan, but that may be, is that at Oklahoma or is that at Michigan? I'm not sure.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, so that's not under Big Ten TV control. So, yeah, just he says it's they got to do a better job. But the schools are not going to work together on that, despite his protestations or however that word is. Each school's going to schedule for what benefits it. So,
well, Texas absolutely has a say in whether that's a Sunday night game. They have no say in if that's going to be a 3:30 game. And if Fox wanted to make it a 3:30, they absolutely could, because they're going to have 2 games on, and that they're going to have a 12 and a 3:30 that week anyway. So those slots are going to be filled. So if they wanted to put Ohio State, Texas at 3:30, they absolutely could. It's just a matter of whether they want to do that or not. And we know they generally don't. And they could put a Big 12 game at noon, or there aren't a ton of Big 10 games, like you said, where they have control. But I think whether they have enough or not, they still have the Big 12. So they don't even necessarily need to put the Big 10 at 12 p.m. So this will be completely a Fox decision. And I think I said it here last week. If they wanted the most eyes, then I still think last week I said they should put Nevada, Penn State on at noon, but they may not. That may have to go to CBS or NBC, because that's one of the marquee games of week 1 that the Big Ten actually has control of in terms of the broadcast partners. But again, this is completely a Fox decision, and we know how that usually goes.
18 teams and no televisable games.
You think more eyeballs in primetime, Tony, versus I think there's LSU, Clemson, and who knows who else that's decent playing, even though it's going to be the number 1 game?
I think the 3:30 game, the big 3:30 game, is Alabama, Florida State, and Texas, Ohio State would beat that no problem. But would Fox get more viewers there, or competing with that, or more viewers at noon, competing with nobody? And
okay. I thought you were talking about prime time.
No. The Fox doesn't have a spot for prime time, so
they're supposedly doing baseball, but again, it's regular season baseball, and they should kick that to Fox Sports 1. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. But unless it's Yankees, Red Sox, and then oh shit, we've all got to watch it.
Got to move Ohio State, Texas to 9 a.m.
Yeah,
you can only see Yankees, Red Sox 19 times a year.
I know. Your old network, they used to love that, didn't they?
Oh,
they lived by that.
Those 4 hour and 15 minute Sunday night games.
Oh, baseball has definitely improved their product. The thing is over and done with in 2 hours and 20 minutes most days now, and I like it. So
My son sent me a stat this week that the final year without a clock in baseball, 67% of the games hit 3 hours. Now it's down to 13%.
Wow.
Reds never play a 3-hour game, almost never. And I watch it pretty religiously. So, it is what it is. So I'm glad.
All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. The Amazon links in the description section of this video and all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. It's the same shopping experience for you. It's the one way you can contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. You're actually spending Amazon's money to contribute to the Voice of College Football. So how about that? The audio is available from these shows on your favorite audio platform. So if you can't catch us here on YouTube, you can catch the audio as well. All right, Tony, these SEC meetings are going on this week. And Greg Sankey, the longer that he's in this job as SEC commissioner, he seems to be getting more and more sure of himself, more and more smug about the SEC status. Not that he didn't walk in the door feeling that as well, but there's just seems to be always a comment about kind of like the innuendos that we're the best and we're going to drive things and we're the leaders and we're ahead of the curve and whatever we determine, that's the way we're going. He certainly made a comment concerning the NCAA, basically that they have rendered themselves useless. That was one comment. And I don't know that I can take his comment genuinely, that he said that he's still open to college football playoff options. I cannot imagine that this has been talked about since they went from 4 teams to 12, that they already had 16 in sight, that he didn't have a pretty good handle on what they wanted to do at that point. And he's pretending like he's still open for any options.
For me, the 4-4-2-2-1 that has been floated, where the Big Ten and the SEC get 4 automatic qualifiers, I think that's what they want. And then to come out this week and say, hey, we could just go to 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at larges. We've got no problem with that. To me, that's just him saying, you better accept the 4-4-2-2-1, or else we're going to get even more programs, more teams in. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but there's a better chance of the ACC or the Big 12 not getting their 2 or their 3 in if they go to 11 at larges. Now, he said our coaches are fine with that. The problem is that the ADs, from what I've read, are not fine with that, because that eliminates the things that we've talked about before with the championship weekend, where you have some play-in games, and that eliminates some of the money that you would have gotten from there. There's thought that you wouldn't need to play a 9th conference game if you choose to do the automatic qualifying, the 11 automatic qualifiers. And so it's kind of thrown a wrench into some of I think a lot of these ADs are almost already spending the money thinking about the changes that are going to take place. And then if you go with a different set of changes, it's like, but we were going to get more money if we did the extra games. And so I think the 5-11 thing is a threat. And this, for the past couple of years, Sankey and the Big Ten have been threatening the other conferences through this whole thing and dragging them along to where I think they're eventually going to agree on the 4-4-2-2-1. But it is, he just, he should be smoking a cigar and stroking a cat menacingly or something, because I know he kind of bristled at a question from somebody about, why is this good for the college game? Why is this good for college sports? And that's a question I've had for Tony Petitti as well. What is all of this hoarding? Why is this good for the sport? And Sankey kind of bristled at the thought. It's like, we've done things good. We've done for the good of the sport in the past. We've acquiesced. We've done this. We've done that. And I think there's so much money out there that they've lost sight of everything else. And when you bring in guys who are businessmen to be athletic directors and to be commissioners, rather than guys that I was a coach once, and then I became an athletic director, and now I became a commissioner. When you take the athletics out of it and you put the administrators and the businessmen in charge of everything, then don't be shocked if it's run like a business. And that's the only thing it's run like.
Absolutely. I just feel as though, even though I'm not happy with the committee, that the various forms of the committee have done a reputable job since it started in 2014. I don't know that anyone can come in any particular year and say they screwed up, number one, and there's very few spots in which you could really challenge their selections, even though, again, that's not the way I would do it. I would have an objective system. But if you're entrusting them, and they've already proven for 11 years that they're capable of selecting the right teams, the teams that have earned it, or some combination of earned it and are considered the best teams, then why don't you just entrust them to select the best 16 teams? And the SEC and the Big Ten are going to have their lion's share of those 16 anyway.
I don't like it. And his comment, I've got people already wanting to know why we're still a member of the NCAA. Well, turn on ESPN every night and you'll see why you're still a member of the NCAA. Your stupid softball teams are playing in the NCAA tournament, and your stupid baseball teams are about ready to play in the NCAA tournament. You had like 12 of your teams made the NCAA basketball tournament, and one of them actually won it. Florida won the NCAA tournament. So you're telling me, I know that all the other sports are a complete afterthought, and I guess they just figure that whoever they align with, let's say they in Big Ten form some type of consortium, and that'd be 34 teams, that the champion of those 34 teams will still draw TV ratings for the non-revenue sports, and that'll be that. But I don't know what he's thinking. I honestly don't. Whether you call it NCAA or don't call it NCAA, you got to have a governing body of some sort that runs the thing. And, the NCAA is a combination of the schools. It's not, and I get it, SEC and Big Ten needs some cool rule. As Spicoli said, they need some cool rules pronto, or they're going to be bogus too. It's, I don't know. They got to figure this thing out, but to just leave everybody behind and say, oh, we're going to do it this way. I'm not sure it's going to be better. I think that people, again, the money derived. Everyone was always worried about the payoffs from that NCAA. I got to get my units from the NCAA tournament. Our conference got X number of units, and God, those things are so valuable. Well, now no one gives a crap about NCAA tournament basketball units, because that got left behind in the dust with all this college football regular season and now college football playoff TV money. So I think that's the tail that's wagging the dog right now. But, it's just ignorant comments like that just, you're just sitting there like, bro, are you not, are you with us? Or are you not with, are you like paying attention? Are you not paying attention? Or what's going through your mind when you say stupid things like that? It's just, I don't know. I don't get it.
His conference is going to make up 4 out of 16 or 25% of the field minimum. That's again, a lot of people I don't think latch onto this part. That's a minimum. That's a guaranteed position. It's not as though we stop at 4 for the SEC and the Big Ten. Actually, the Big 12 would have benefited from this format this past season, with BYU jumping from 17 to 16 and getting in. So that's kind of an anomaly of sorts.
Yeah, I don't have a huge issue with the 4-4-2-2-1, because that's roughly what it averages out to every year. My bigger issue would be what you do for championship weekend. And I think there are some really interesting things you can do where you could have play-in games. But the thing is, if you have a play-in game, does the loser still would the 3-6? Would the loser of the 3 still have an opportunity to get in? Maybe, because you're still going to need three at-larges from all of college football. So I think there's still some possibility that you could have a devastating loss as a 3 versus 6 and be knocked out of the playoffs and be really close to being in the playoffs, but lose that game. I also think that we should get rid of the conference championship games, at least for the SEC and the Big Ten, because 1 versus 2, both of those teams are in. So that's not an important game. so far we've seen no benefit to winning a conference championship. It's very much like the men's basketball tournament, like in terms of winning your conference, it does no good for you. And I would think the same thing here. The benefit would maybe be getting the week off, that week of championship week, and those two teams are just in. And for the Big Ten, you'd have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5. The winners get in. So now you've got basically the top 6 teams in your conference make the playoffs. It's just how far do they get to go into playoffs? That is, that's anybody's determination. But like, I think having 6 teams in your conference, whether you're the Big Ten or the SEC, playing in the playoffs and for the playoffs, I think that's a good thing. And I think the elimination of the conference championship game then also continues to keep the regular season important as well, because for decades for a century we decided conference championships based on the regular season. I think that's still a thing, and there's tiebreakers to determine who's actually the champ and things like that. And at that point, you may not even need that anymore, because the seeding would be done by the committee, not the standings necessarily. So I just don't think you need a conference championship game any longer if you're the Big Ten or the SEC, even though I know they don't want to give up that game. But if you're adding 2 games, I think that's an acceptable loss. Now, Lucas Oil Stadium might disagree with that, but I don't really care. One thing that I saw that the SEC kind of threw out there that I don't think it's going to work is they were talking 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, that sort of thing, and having 8 teams playing play-in games. And it's like, there's no point in that, because the number 1 seed losing to the 8, the number 1 seed is still going to be in. So like, there's just no reason for the top 1 or 2 seeds to play, whether you're in the SEC or the Big Ten. Now, ACC, Big 12, all bets are off on how they want to do it.
They're giving me a headache thinking about the logistics of all this shit.
Well, and what about the television thing? If you've got like two Big Ten playoff play-in games taking place the same day as 2 SEC play-in games on the championship weekend.
Yeah. The TV wants, a triple header, 3 versus 6 at noon, or no, I guess it would be, 3 versus 6, and then 4 versus 5 at 3:30, and then 1 versus 2 at 8 o'clock, which, whatever. I get Tony's point about what's the point of those conference championship games anymore. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to think or say about that.
It's a very small sample size. It didn't help last year. Didn't help anybody.
Yeah,
Kirby Smart didn't even want to play in like the SEC championship game.
I don't like the idea of turning around 1 week later. See, you're getting too deep in the schedule. I've always thought the championship game should be Thanksgiving weekend, and then the first week of the playoff the following weekend, where the championship games are now, the first weekend in December. And if you have to start a week earlier in August, so be it. I don't think it's high school in Ohio now starts like August 20th. They can have 2 or sometimes not 3, but they'll have 2 games in before the first college games a lot of times. They're giving me fatigue on all this format change. And, again, why am I supposed to care that, Alabama and Miami made it last year? They weren't any good. Neither of those teams, when they played good teams, were worth a crap. I've wanted to say the SHIT word like 7 times today. I guess I'm in a really bad mood, but I don't know. They're ruining the sport. I could see a compromise where maybe SEC and Big Ten get 3 automatics to the 2 for ACC and Big 12. That kind of feels like a sweet spot, to borrow that phrase from my good friend Gene Smith. And then, 1 group of 5 automatic, and then Notre Dame and the rest of the at-larges all thrown into a hopper. I like that Notre Dame can now be seeded 1 through 4. I was standing on the mountaintop about that from the beginning, because just as badly as the bracket was screwed up this past year, imagine having, perish the thought, the greatest Notre Dame team ever is 12-0 and seeded 5th. That's not fair to 4. It's not fair to 1, who should be 2. and play them, in the championship game, but instead would have to play them in the semifinals and, so on and so forth. But that's the one thing I like about this, and I'm not even a Notre Dame apologist or fan. It's just, it's the right way to do it. If Notre Dame has the best team or Clemson has the best team or, a non-Big Ten champion Ohio State has the best team, they should be number one. I mean, it's rare that a non-champion would be number one, but, you get my point that, rank the teams the way they should be ranked.
Yeah, I'm with you. Notre Dame should be able to be in the top 4. That way, whoever faces them in that round has an easier matchup. That's a reward for that team to be able to play Notre Dame.
I think Freeman's going to win one. I bet you a hot fudge sundae that Freeman wins one before his time's done at Notre Dame. And he's probably going to be the coach there for about 12 to 15 years, I bet.
He's going to, if he's as successful as he's been, I think it's going to be hard for Notre Dame to keep him.
Well, the only place he'd go is Ohio State. I mean, maybe Alabama. I don't know.
NFL?
NFL? Yeah, I guess you got a point there. Yeah,
Cincinnati Moeller?
Ohio State could look at him as an alum, too, one day.
I know that I'm sick of the Notre Dame exception. So for me, either Notre Dame needs to prove that they are decidedly better than whatever teams they're being compared to be elevated, or there needs to be some kind of automatic slap on the wrist penalty because they're not in a conference and cannot win a conference championship. That's where I stand on Notre Dame. In terms of this conference championship weekend,
but they proved they deserved the spot last year, didn't they?
Deserve a spot in the playoff.
Well, then who did they beat on the way to the championship game?
Georgia.
They beat Indiana, Georgia, and Penn State.
Yes.
I mean, who else were they supposed to beat?
I'm not talking about. Sure, once they're in the tournament, they earned their trip to the national championship game. I'm talking about earning their seeding in the playoff.
Yeah, you don't overseed them just because they're Notre Dame. I mean,
I think you underseed them because they're Notre Dame and they refuse to join a conference and they're not playing a 13th game or a conference championship.
Yeah.
I look at 2018, which pissed me off because you got Oklahoma playing at noon. You've got Ohio State playing a primetime game in conference championship games. They're both 12-1. After the wins, and you got Notre Dame sitting at home, and the selection committee had to decide Oklahoma or Ohio State. And so Ohio State gets knocked out. I did not think that the committee made a bad decision. I just think that they made a decision. I didn't think either one was a bad decision. Ohio State had better wins, but they had more egregious losses or loss. And then here we are 2 years later, and we're watching, here we are a month later watching Notre Dame with an ACC contract getting obliterated 30-3 by Clemson, the team that they should have been playing in the ACC championship game, to get knocked out. And then here we are 2 years later in 2020, and Notre Dame gets saved by the ACC. They play a conference schedule, and they get blasted by Clemson in the ACC championship game. It's just these considerations made for Notre Dame. It's not their fault. So when Notre Dame fans come after me, I'm not saying it's your fault. You do what's best for you, but that's why there needs to be somebody who takes control of the sport. Now, in terms of championship weekend, it would sadden me that conference championship games would go away. But from a practical standpoint, yes, they don't matter in the two biggest conferences. We saw that last year. Oregon, Penn State, Texas, Georgia safely in the playoff did not help them at all, may have actually hurt them to win the conference championship. And a conference championship used to mean something, and now it doesn't. If you do not win the national championship, nobody cares. My issue with this, so I think that this 3-6-4-5 business would be fun because you don't know a week earlier who's going to be playing in those games exactly. And it's just, it livens up the situation and it puts necks on the line to try to reach the playoff. The issue I have is that in a conference like the Big Ten, that's top heavy, the number 3 seed could be one of the best teams in the country. They could be a top 5 team in the country number 6 could be Iowa, and they could be the 30th best team in the country.
With no discernible offense.
And so if that game is just considered another data point towards selection, then I'm all for it. But it's not going to be considered. It's going to be a play-in game. And then the SEC is just when you bring up them looking at 8 teams to play that weekend, they're just, again, showing more arrogance to say our 8 team deserves consideration into the playoff.
Yeah. Well, and didn't they have like 5 or 6 5-3 teams last year in conference play? And last year for the Big Ten, I believe it would have been Indiana versus Indiana versus Illinois, and then Iowa versus Ohio State. And Iowa was not ranked in the committee's rankings for that week, so they would have had, that's how bad things were. But again, that's an outlier. But how much of an outlier is it? We expect Oregon and USC and Washington maybe now to continue to bolster these things, so we wouldn't have to rely on an Iowa. But also, I think Iowa, if they got an offense, maybe they wouldn't be so bad. We've seen them have an offense before, and I saw somebody lamenting, one of the national writers. Actually, I don't want to. They're all the same. Lamenting the idea that if we do these things, and kind of like you were, Mark, like this could allow Iowa to be in the playoffs. They've been one game away from the playoffs before. They've been in the Big Ten championship game, where if they would have won that game, they would have been in the playoffs. So this is not a new thing. They've had play-in games before. They've just lost them. So maybe expect that same. But also, if we're going to 16 teams, that means one of these teams is going to be the 16th best team in the nation, and that means that we're okay with that. So how much of a difference is there between the 20th team and the 16th team when we're down that far? So I think those are some of the exceptions where I completely agree, and I'm okay with it. Like it makes for more excitement, more games. I think more games is good because I like college football. Now, do I want to see more Iowa games? No, of course not. But let's assume it's going to be Washington or Minnesota or maybe Wisconsin. Not that you can't just win the argument by saying, yeah, but it might be Iowa, because that's too effective of an argument, Mark. It's not fair. I need some ammunition as well.
We have a big Iowa audience, Tony. We have a lot of Iowa fans here. We're insulting.
I think Iowa, again, they have been the most consistent defense, and exactly what you're going to get. It's just in terms of defense and what things are going to look like. But when they actively did not want an offense, that was off-putting. And I expect them to be okay this year offensively. And the thing is, like, if they just score 24 points a game, then that might be 9 or 10 wins every single year. And that's a level of consistency that Mark, you should respect. And clearly you don't. That's all I'm saying.
I was just thinking back on Iowa's shot at getting in the playoff once you said that, they came within a game of the playoff a few times. The bar for Iowa in those situations, even if it had been score 1 touchdown and you make the playoff, or score a point and make the playoff, they would not have been able to achieve that, let alone win the game.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that point.
The scores make the argument for me.
It's just, if they had a better defense, if they could have intercepted more passes and returned more punts for touchdowns, they would have been fine.
Yeah, so you can't do that as readily against actually decent teams that know how to handle the football. You can't pick on Northwestern every week is the problem. But their run against like top 5 to top 10 competition is ugly. Like Ohio State, those 2 games in the Horseshoe, and the 2 Michigan championship games, and Penn State 31-0, Tennessee 35-0. Yeah. So, I mean,
not a huge reason to expect that to change with a 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, unless that 3 is Indiana. Then it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. They could play a barn burner, the 2 of those. Yakov, you've got a super chat for us that doesn't go through. Well, Yakov, your equity is good with us. You've built up some equity through the year. So just fire your question about the 79 Steelers Browns game, or whatever you've got for us this week, and we'll pick it up.
Favorite Billy Hatcher stolen base?
The answer is Jack Lambert.
The answer is always Jack Lambert. Did you guys see this in The Athletic this week where they ran down their top 25 teams during the century? They ran down their top, I think they went to 25 coaches in the century. But these are
I just saw the top 25 programs. I don't have a subscription. I didn't see the coaches either, but I did see the Ohio State thing. Which
Ohio State, the number one program.
I saw some bits and pieces of it, but I didn't go into it too deep. I know Ohio State and Alabama were kind of at the top, or Alabama, Ohio State, I suppose. You got Michigan State up there. I mean, Michigan State was actually pretty good until about the last 5 years. They fell off the face of the planet. But, I mean, they're as bad now as they've ever been. But, for a while there, they were pretty good.
I like Aiden Childs. I'm excited to see what they can do this year.
Jackie Childs?
There's Iowa.
Who told you to use the lip balm?
Ohio State for the century, our friends up north, I think ranked number 11. There they are. 12th in winning percentage.
Might have to revisit this later this summer, though.
They might be some of those. They might be like 34th. Ohio State, yes. Best winning percentage. 20 New Year's 6 bowl games or BCS bowl games out of 25 years. The 3 national championships, the 9 conference championships. I don't know if they're counting 2010 as well. What mystified me is, and you guys may be able to make something out of this, where it says top 10 rankings and top 25 rankings. I went through Iowa, and those were not consistent. They were not accurate. Like they had Iowa making the top 10 9% of the time. Well, 5 out of 25 is not 9% of the time, and they had them in the top 25 35% of the time, and 11 out of 25 is not 35. So I don't know what those percentages mean.
Is it weeks ranked in the top 10 or top 25? Maybe. I have no idea.
You would think it would just be a final ranking, but the argument for the century, as we've made it through a quarter of the century, is of course Ohio State and Alabama. And that's what drew ire from the Twitter universe. The Twitterverse, I guess is what it's called, is Alabama's won 6 national championships, so they should be number 1.
Yeah, well, Twitter forgets that Alabama wasn't ranked at all in 2006, wasn't ranked at all in 2004, was only ranked 1 week in 2003, only ranked 2 weeks in 2001, only ranked 4 weeks in 2000, and all of these, generally involve the preseason, which is a fake ranking. So I know Twitter started in like 2008, and I think that's when they think college football, a century of college football, started as well once Nick Saban got there. But there was quite a bit of pre-Saban Alabama that has clouded this whole thing. And if you want to make it the last 20 years, absolutely, fine. But there was a period of time where Alabama was a laughingstock. There was a time when Alabama tried to hire, or they did hire, Washington State's coach. They tried to hire Rich Rodriguez, told them no, and I'm staying at West Virginia. Dennis Franchione, not this century, but I think this century, left Alabama for Texas A&M. Like, this is what we're talking about. This was the state of Alabama football. So this is all Nick Saban that has
Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whichever one of those Louisiana teams.
May have been Monroe in 07, but yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing.
Same thing. It's all the same.
Yeah,
and then
that can't happen.
And then the fact that Oklahoma is third, like, that tells you how far ahead I think Ohio State and Alabama were, because you could have thrown in Clemson. I don't know that I would have gone Oklahoma, but I certainly don't think of Oklahoma as the third, even though they have been remarkably consistent. But I think maybe maybe the last few years have tainted us, which, recency bias. I just kind of told Twitter they're dumb for, but I kind of do the same thing with Oklahoma.
Yeah, so that's the lineup there. On the coaches' rankings, I'll have to try to find that. Urban Meyer at number 2 behind Nick Saban and Ryan Day 11. I'll have to flag that
Boy,
down.
that seems a little low for the guy with the active career winning percentage at this point. But also, it's only 6 years of him being a head coach, so 5 years, whatever.
Yeah, something in that range. Let's see. Yeah, so our top 25 coaches. Here we go. Here's your rundown. Sorry, I cannot find just the list without the paragraph explanation, but we can sift through this. Mike Leach, of course, lifted every program he went to. Number 25, may he rest in peace. Chip Kelly at 24, remarkable at Oregon, a disaster at UCLA. Those are two ends of the spectrum.
Quite a contrast.
Yes. Bill Snyder, Kansas State, of course, who just, when I want to use an example of somebody that founded a program, did not technically build the program, but he built the program.
And then rebuilt astonishing.
There's our buddy Kirk Ferentz at number 22.
Is that low?
Maybe.
I assume these all have formulas. So to say like this is too low or too high, it's like, well, this is all mathematics. So argue with science, you idiot.
Well, they gave us a formula to a certain extent with the teams, with all those rankings and so forth, but not with these coaches. Mark D'Antonio, certainly nowhere in the Ferentz consistency or longevity.
Yeah.
But yeah, to Steve's point, when he had Michigan State going to Rose Bowls and playing on a high end, it was pretty good.
I don't know if I would put him ahead of Ferentz, though.
I don't think so either. His highs weren't that incredibly high. He did win 3 Big Ten championships, but Ferentz has 2.
He did have power over Urban Meyer, and Ferentz got 1 over Urban Meyer, but yeah.
Lincoln Riley, his star is dimming with each passing season. Kyle Whittingham at Utah.
Feels low.
Yeah, it does feel low. He's usually given a lot more respect than that. Mark Richt had a heck of a run at Georgia, of course, but never pushed it over the top.
Oh.
Now, this is where there needs to be a little discretion in terms of, okay, we're going to take the numbers. Sure, the numbers mean just about everything, but we're going to apply some discretion here. We actually watched the man coach for 20 years, and he can't.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I practically, considered shutting down my channel when Les Miles stepped away because he provided me with a video like every other week. James Franklin, 16.
I don't have an issue with that. Gary Patterson seems kind of high because he kind of faded quickly.
You guys are going to love this. We've got a guy, God bless him, Clint Foster, very funny guy, but I don't know about his football acumen. He just went on a rampage on Twitter, the aforementioned Twitter, saying that Gary Patterson should be ranked ahead of Ryan Day.
Oh, good Lord.
Like he thought it was just a disaster of a ranking. Just how could that possibly be?
That's absurd.
Frank Beamer.
They did face off once, right? Day in 2018.
They did. Beamer consistent. The last 5 years were pretty mediocre. Jimbo, of course, way overpriced at Texas A&M, but's got the national championship. Brian Kelly at 12. Yes, Ryan Day at 11.
I'm surprised that Brian Kelly is behind Ryan Day.
Yeah, Ryan Day at 11. So these are the coaches that rank ahead of Ryan Day, according to The Athletic. Chris Peterson.
Yeah, I
Mac
don't have it.
Brown.
Yeah. I respect Chris Peterson. Washington, they made it to the Rose Bowl. It's like he never took them as far as maybe what he should have. But also, I think he didn't want to be at USC when he could have been, and he enjoyed where he was. So, like, I don't have any issues with Chris Peterson because what they did at Boise State was really, really good.
Mm-hmm. He went to a playoff at Washington as well.
Yeah.
Mac Brown.
I always felt like his North Carolina teams, like back in the day, were disappointing. They get hyped up a little bit, and they're going to challenge Florida State, and then they would kind of just fade. And I always thought that he created a level of at Texas, I think, kind of built them into a soft program where after you lose Vince, once Vince Young was gone, they kind of just felt like entitled to all of this success, and they never really did as much as they could have. I think they had a good chance to win a national championship if Colt McCoy wouldn't have gotten hurt against Alabama. But yeah, I think this is kind of high for Mac Brown, and certainly high for the next guy, Jay Whiz.
So Jim Harbaugh's career against Ryan Day's. He did win a national championship. Mm-hmm. He got that done.
For
and he
now.
Built Stanford.
Yep. And then it stayed built, for longer than he was there,
another
but you can maybe chalk that up to Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, Stanford was solid, was really good, and then decent.
Oh boy. So was that Jim Harbaugh at 8 and Jim Tressel at 7?
Yes.
That seems like there should be a much wider gap between those two.
It does. Because Harbaugh, until they broke through, he was doing nothing but losing postseason games and losing to his rival 5 years in a row.
Yeah, what was it? What helped that breakthrough? What was there? There was something that went on 2021 to kind of spearhead all of that. And I just,
yeah. But he didn't have much to do with that, apparently.
Oh.
So I don't know.
I believe that's what he said to the NCAA when he's like, I'm not talking to you people.
That he should get credit for that. So maybe he shouldn't be at 8 because he didn't mastermind that, apparently. I don't know. Yeah, Tressel, when you talk about just showing up at a BCS bowl game every year, it's really strong stuff. Bob Stoops, Oklahoma. Stoops' longevity over Tressel, but I can't imagine his winning percentage is better.
You're muted, Steve.
My apology. I got a lot going on here with these dogs going nuts. Some of these last few that you've gone through, I guess we're now 25 years into this century. It's kind of hard to equate what, how do you measure a Tressel against a Harbaugh, that type thing. It's kind of a apples and oranges type comparison. I mean, Tressel didn't have to win a conference championship game to win a conference. So, I mean, he could share it with 2 other teams. So that's a little bit of a different accomplishment than what we're seeing today. But definitely deserving.
Not to interrupt, Steve. He did not have to beat an Iowa offense twice to win conference championships. And Purdue.
Yeah. And when he played Iowa, they actually had offenses, pretty good offenses.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
No,
those are Harbaugh's 3 Big Ten championships. They beat Purdue, who went 8-6, and they beat Iowa twice.
Well, 2 of Ohio State's are Northwestern, so take it for whatever it's worth.
Mark, Ohio State had trouble against Purdue and Iowa, as everybody knows. So I think we should give those credit and give those wins credit.
All true. Tressel at 7, Stoops at 6. I would have to diagnose that a little bit closer. I just think Stoops is getting the nod because of longevity. there. Dabo's at 5.
Sure.
He's not better than Kirby Smart. Maybe not better, but his resume's not better.
I think they've accomplished about the same, just Smart's done it in about half the amount of time. We're per capita, I'd say Smart. I mean, Dabo was there 5 years, 3, 4, 5 years before. It took him a little while to get it ramped up. But, once he got it ramped up, let's say it's been broken. If he's been there 15 years, it's divided into the first 3 or 4, the middle 5 or 6 were dynamite. The last 3 or 4 have been dog crap. So by their standards. So.
Yeah. I just think Kirby Smart inherited a much better program.
Yeah. You make a very good point.
Then we've got Pete Carroll at 3.
The Pantheon.
I forgot all about Pete Carroll. I was wondering who was 3.
Sleazy Pete.
They were so fun to watch, and it was like they were so talented, and you needed to catch them on an off day for sure.
Yeah. Boy, they ripped Ohio State in the game out there. And, came into Ohio Stadium and beat him there too. So, yeah.
He was a true freshman quarterback when Ohio State played scared against him.
Yeah. Fetal
when
position.
You look at these USC seasons and the one game that they would blow, they could have went on a run from 03 through 08. They were this close to a national championship.
And they recruited everywhere. They'd go, obviously they locked down California. They'd be in Florida. They'd be in Ohio, wherever. And they were the place to be.
And then difficult to argue that just because Saban's longevity. Urban matches him in regards to winning percentage, or actually eclipses him. And it's just concentrated. And obviously Saban won the more national championships and lasted longer. And it's just not debatable.
Well, I think the one debate here, not this goes back to the last century, is that Urban Meyer could win in the Big Ten and Nick Saban couldn't. And that's really the differentiator here. If you want to brass tacks, like Nick Saban wasn't able to win consistently in the Big Ten.
There it is.
Just too difficult for him. Had to go to the SEC where it's easier to win. Less competition. Back to you, Mark.
Well done. Wrapped up by Tony. So for more gems this week, while you're on a roll, Tony, what's going on with you? You actually addressed this conference championship weekend dilemma.
Well, I'm going to write about it, how we need to get rid of the conference championship games. I've just wrote about Kenyatta Jackson today, talking about how he's stepping up as a leader. And we did a Buckeye Weekly podcast on Monday. So what I did is I went through, I asked ChatGPT and I asked like 3 other AI LLMs whether the hammer is going to drop on Michigan. So they went through and all of the precedents and all that. So we talked about that, and I also wrote about that back on Monday about whether AI thinks the hammer is coming for Michigan. So you can find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Just don't ask AI to add anything. I thought I would make my all-time rankings an easier task by asking AI, what is Oregon's record since 1970? And I, of course, was more explicit and specific than that. No, it spit something out that I knew was not correct. Yeah. And I just did it over. And I was okay.
That's the problem. You've got to check all of the work. And it's like, I thought this was supposed to be quicker, but it's not.
Steve,
I'm guessing you're not relying on AI too much this week.
No. Just all kinds of stuff going on, at this time of the year, with the camps coming up at Ohio State in the next few weeks. It's going to be a hectic and busy time, but we are just trying to stay on top of everything that's going on. And I did write the second part of my interviews with Lorenzo Styles Jr. and Sonny Styles. That was kind of a neat story that I was able to put out there this week. And we talked last week about their charity event, which is coming up on Friday. They're having a sleep out to raise money for the Huckleberry House, which provide services for homeless children and young adults who need a kind of a push or a help to get off the ground. So that's kind of a neat thing. You can check all that out at bucknuts.com.
All right, folks. So we get together every Wednesday with Steve and Tony. These guys are phenomenal. We've done it 319 times. We'll be back for 320, we believe, next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and we hope to see you then.